Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What's a time that you have been legitimately scared for your life? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. So where I live, I'm about a 30-minute walk to one of my friend's places. I was hanging out over there, and around 2 a.m. I decided to walk home. During the walk, I decided to take a shortcut and walk down an alley onto the main road. The alley wasn't very long, but it was quite dark and pretty terrifying. As I was halfway down the alley, an SUV started up and slowly went past me. He turned onto the road and left me for that instant. As I kept walking, the same SUV passed the end of the alley, and I heard it turn off on the side of the road. At this point, I was a little creeped out, but figured it was just a guy moving his car. I got out of the alley, and this guy was just sitting in his car. I couldn't really see his face, so I couldn't tell if he was staring at me. I kept walking down the road, now on a sidewalk, and as I got about 200 meters from this guy, I heard his car start up again. I could hear him slowly driving behind me. I didn't want to look, because just from this one move of his, I got pretty scared. I didn't get scared for my life yet, though. This guy kept slowly following me for about 5 minutes until another car came from the other direction. He sped up and kept going until they were out of sight. Pulling a U-turn, this guy sped past me, turning around again and doing the same thing. Now, at this point in my walk home, I was scared, but thought it was just a guy walking with me, until I passed a parking lot. He pulled into the lot, parked about 100 meters in front of me, facing the road, lights off, just sitting there. I kept walking, making sure I didn't make eye contact, because I didn't want to give him any reason whatsoever to hurt me. But as I passed his SUV, the high beams went on right in my face. He stepped out of his car, walked to about 2 meters from me, and just stared. I took a look and couldn't see him because of the lights. At this point, I didn't care and started sprinting. He got in his car and started following me, still just going behind me and never passing me. I knew that there was a pedestrian bridge to cross the highway a little ways up. I ran to that and got across. I never looked back until I got home. Scariest moment of my life. Even if this guy was just joking around, I thought I was going to get kidnapped or murdered. Went to see Bon Jovi at an outdoor venue in 1987. Went the day before and camped out at the front of the line overnight. Approximately 60,000 people showed up, all behind us in line. As soon as the gate opened, I felt the rush of 60,000 people stampeding their way through. At that moment, I knew I had to run for my life or be trampled to death. There were times that I didn't even feel my feet touching the ground, as the crowd sort of carried me along. It was extremely scary. I'm a 50 to 60 feet on top of a warehouse on a scissor lift running Cat 5 wires, installing access points. The APs were mounted upside down off the ceiling and wires run along pipes. The idiot I was working with decides to gun it on the scissor lift. What this bitch doesn't realize is that every 20 or 30 feet is a 2-foot drop off the ceiling, steel beams running horizontally. So we're going pretty fast on the scissor lift. I wasn't paying attention to where the horizontal beams are. I turn around and immediately drop to the bottom of the scissor lift. If I hadn't, my head would have come off, or I would have been seriously injured. This bitch just laughed it off, but I was scared for my life. I was pretty shocked for the rest of the workday. Once we hit the ground, it was a few months before I even got back on it, and when I did, I made sure it was with someone who respected safety. I was riding my motorcycle home on a section of interstate in my city. This was about 2100, 9 p.m., and it was dark. I worked night shift, and the time I had gotten off at 6:30 that morning, ridden 200 miles to a friend's place, gotten 3 hours of sleep, ridden about 150 miles with him, and gone to dinner, then picked up something from that city and rode the 200 miles home. There's a section of interstate here where it passes over a highway. Whoever was in charge of that contract must have bent over the person that bid for the contract, because it's a horrible paving job. As I'm coming around a curve, over a bump, leaned over doing about 65 on the bike, I see a piece of plywood in the road, full-sized 4x8 piece with a 1x1 nailed around the entire perimeter. I hit that piece of plywood and caught air. Anyone who's ever ridden a motorcycle will tell you that catching air on a street bike while leaned over and not expecting it is a more than slightly scary thing to do. Luckily, I didn't hit the brakes out of panic. I landed. The bike had some headshake, so I throttled out and promptly pulled over. I got off the bike, pulled the seat out of my crack, put it back on the bike, and stood there shaking for a few minutes. That's the first time I've ever pulled over from fear. Keep in mind, I live in a climate where it snows plenty in the winter, and I like to drive aggressively. One winter, my dad took my brother and I hunting, and at a friend's cabin many hours from where we live. The cabin is extremely remote and took at least an hour and a half of driving on the back roads to find. We were a half an hour into the back roads portion of our trip, and we noticed headlights not far behind us. We find this a bit strange, seeing as how remote the location is. No one says anything. The snow was deep in this portion of the mountains. There are plenty of tall conifer trees that keep direct light from reaching the forest floor and melting the snow. So, the many weeks of snow we received prior had piled up and not diminished at all. My dad's 1990s Ford Ranger was struggling to stay on the road as we continued to push through the 12+ inches of snow. There are plenty of crisscrossing trails and roads out there, and so we ended up taking a few as my dad struggled to remember where the cabin was. Progress was slow, as Pops was focused on maintaining traction. Probably an hour or so, and several turns later, we noticed that the vehicle we had seen before was still behind us. This added to the little paranoia that had arisen when we initially spotted the vehicle. That vehicle had plenty of opportunities to turn, and the farther we went, the more remote the roads became. Cabins are few and far between, so it seemed very unlikely that the person had a cabin on the same road as us. We reached a slight rise in the terrain, which was going to cause issues for Dad's truck. When he bought it, he had looked specifically for the model with no amenities, so we lacked four-wheel drive. Oh no. He stopped and backed down the road a few yards to give himself a chance to get it with some speed. He made several attempts to fling himself up the hill, each time coming precariously close to falling off the road. It was during one of these attempts that me and my brother noticed the vehicle creeping up on us. One of us said something to Dad, but he was preoccupied. We made it up the hill, and everyone was pretty quiet. The road was very treacherous at this point, and we still nowhere near the cabin. If we get stuck, it will be a long march through the snow on a road we don't know, and it was fast approaching dark. We all kept eyeing the side view mirrors as the vehicle behind us got within several car lengths. At this point, we were all sure that he was following us. We had taken too many turns for this to be a weird coincidence. Dad reached behind the seats and pulled out the rifle and laid it across our laps. He asked us to put a bullet in the chamber. Dad slows down and edges himself toward the side of the road like one does when letting someone pass them. The truck gets the hint and pulls up. Turns out it was some dude that thought we were a friend of his and was following us to what he thought was their cabin. Poor dude was probably lost his shit after that. We got to the cabin and didn't end up shooting anything. It snowed a few extra inches while we were there, and we got stuck on the way out. We truly thought we were screwed. That's my story.
I mean, that guy following you, maybe he thought
that it was his buddy or something, but he should have signaled or motioned or something. Like, just following people through the woods, knowing it's an area for hunting, is a good way to get yourself shot at. So, glad you guys made it. Sorry that you didn't get anything you were going for, but seems like a memorable trip, if nothing else. I also have a creeper in a car story. I was jogging with my dog and it started getting dark before I thought it would. This truck drives by, slows down, and then pulls over to the side of the road 100 feet in front of me. After a few seconds, he pulls out of the spot and drives past me in the other direction and stops behind me, about 50 feet back. Proceeds to do this another 2 times, just going back and forth, closer and closer. I panic and am sprinting toward my yard. I could hear the truck right behind me, and I thought, shit, I'm going to get abducted. I got to my fence, climbed/flew over it, pulled my dog through the gap, and ran into my house. As soon as I was on the other side of the fence, the guy sped off. It might have just been some asshole trying to freak me out as a laugh, and if so, he was 100% successful. I didn't go jogging near my house for months after that. To start things off, I was kind of sick. Nothing terrible, but I just didn't feel right. My body was very achy all over, slightly feverish. For a while I thought it might be Lyme disease, but apparently it wasn't. I never did find out what it was. Anyway, the illness was just a small, confounding factor in my story. Next, my car got towed. Looked up where the towing company was and decided to bike there. It was a very hot day in July, like really super hot, high 90s. Something was wrong with my bike. I think something stuck in the gears, or maybe the brakes were rubbing. Anyway, it was incredibly difficult to pedal, but I pressed on for a good 20 to 30 minutes or so, occasionally taking a break to walk and push my bike. I swear I'm in decent shape. It was the bike. I finally arrive at the towing company, closed on Sundays. I'm an idiot. At this point, I'm suffering a decent amount from the heat and from my shitty-ass bike and from being rather sick or sore to begin with. I didn't bring any water, as I was planning on a nice air-conditioned ride back. I also did not have my phone on me. Hate having it in my pocket when I'm riding. Didn't bring a pack of any kind. So I'm just going to have to go back the way I came and try again the next day. As I'm biking home, I decide to take what I think will be a shortcut. After laboring along this road for quite some time, the realization starts to sink in that this is in fact not a shortcut at all, and I'm going in very much the wrong direction. It's been at least another half hour that I'd been traveling. There's nothing to do but turn around, double back to the towing company, and go home from there via the route I first came by. At this point, I'm exhausted and severely dehydrated, but I remembered passing some churches along my shortcut and thought they seemed like likely places to get some water or get out of the heat for a little bit. The first church I come to is locked. It's a Sunday afternoon, what the hell? But I find a spigot and hose out back that I get a few gulps of water from. But there's nowhere to get out of the heat, so I continue on my way. Half biking, half pushing my bike, I eventually come to a second church. It's a big church, and there's something big going on here. People everywhere, very well dressed. Might have been a wedding. Anyway, I wander into the church in my shorts and t-shirt, completely drenched in sweat. Everyone's staring at me. Lots of children clearly think I'm the most ridiculous thing they've ever seen, as I locate a fountain and down some more water. The symbolic irony of me being a former Christian, now atheist, getting water at this church was not lost on me. I also attempt to locate a bathroom so I can just douse my head with water. The first door I tried, which had a male restroom symbol on it, turned out to not be a restroom. I'm not sure exactly what it was, given that it contained a number of rather startled young women, and I quickly shut the door and bolted. No, they weren't naked or anything. It wasn't a women's bathroom either, no bathroom at all. My best guess was that it was some kind of off-stage area where people wait during some kind of production or ceremony. Found the bathroom on the second try, did what I needed to do, and left, getting some more water on the way out. There's still people everywhere staring at me. In the bathroom, in the lobby, in the parking lot, outside, no one has a clue what the I'm doing there. I'm back on the road feeling slightly better, but not out of the woods yet. I still haven't even made it back to the towing company. And from there, it's still at least half an hour home. That's how long it took me when I was fresh. Half an hour later, the temporary relief provided by the water of life has utterly forsaken me, and I'm quite certain I will die pushing my bike along the highway. I feel much too embarrassed to flag down a car or anything like that, but I'm pretty close now, and I eventually stumble into a McDonald's that's about 20 minutes out from my apartment. I get a large water, a fruit smoothie, and a cookie. My stomach feels terrible, and I'm not hungry at all, but I just know I need to drink and eat something. I sit by the sunny window in the middle of July and eat. The air-conditioned building and cold beverages are a big shock to my system. Pretty soon, I start shivering and feeling even more feverish than before. I finish eating and go sit outside for a bit to warm up. Eventually, I feel okay and make the final length of the journey back to my apartment in decent time, stopping once to collect an interesting-looking bug because I'm an entomologist and no situation is too dire to not collect an interesting insect. Don't remember what I did upon getting home, but pretty sure I drank all of the water, cranked up the AC, and passed out. All said and done. I later calculated my total distance traveled to be about 12 to 13 miles that day. March 23rd, 2014. It was around 5 a.m. and I was driving my mom's Chevy Tracker, and I was merging from one tollway to another. I was going about 70 miles per hour in the far left lane. I'm driving, and I hear this big thud and grinding noise. I look in the rearview mirror, and I see a shitload of sparks. My right rear side is lower than the rest. I see my wheel with its half axle speeding in front of me. And as I'm seeing this, I'm controlling a tracker with 3 wheels, going about 60 to 70-ish. Luckily, I made it to the shoulder. I came out panicking and crying because I was scared shitless. Next, I see my wheel, but there was no way I could run and grab it and come back in time. I see it with its half axle sticking up on the wheel face, and I see a pack of cars coming, and of course I'm telling myself I'm going to get sued. Well, one car unfortunately hit its front bumper, and I see the wheel fly up about 10 feet, and it flew somewhere. I called the state troopers, and then looked for the wheel. I went about 2 football fields down the shoulder, freezing in the Illinois morning cold weather. I see a Ford Fiesta, and see front end damage, and saw their little airbag went off, but they were fine. The car happened to be a rental car. I see lights behind my car, and run, and stopping to catch my breath. Officer asked what happened, and I gave him my story. I thankfully didn't get a ticket. I called my parents, and they came to pick me up and drove me to my job site. I'm normally 30 to 45 minutes early, and so my coworkers knew something was wrong. What's funny is, my foreman texted me, saying he would be 15 minutes late, and so I sent a picture of the car and said, I think I will be more than 15 minutes late. He asked me if I was alright, and to take my time. He was my absolute favorite foreman. It was the last day of that job site, and it was just me and him, so I couldn't leave him hanging. For most foremen, I would have said, screw it, I'm going home. I was staying in a room that led right outside, and the doors were big sliding glass windows. There is a large wooden area about 20 feet out, and a bunch of homeless people stay out there also, if people are running from the cops. That's where they go. So it's about 2:30 to 3 a.m. and I can't sleep. I go outside to smoke a cigarette, and the automatic lights turn on. I hear a shh coming from the woods. I should have been more concerned, but I stay outside for a little anyway, then go back in. I undress and try to get some sleep. This is where the glass window becomes relevant. There are curtains in my room, but there's a gap of about 1 foot where you can look inside and see my bed. Probably wasn't the smartest. About 10 minutes, and I'm finally dozing off to sleep. Around the exact moment my eyes close, I hear something running around outside. I look up to a flashlight being pointed at me, and I make eye contact with some random dude for a good 2 to 3 seconds. Then he sprints off. I had no idea whether he was running away or running to open my bedroom door. I don't think I've ever gotten up and dressed so fast in my life. I didn't realize it was the police until I saw 2 more run past my room a few moments later. First I thought I was possibly being kidnapped. Then I thought, oh God, is my house being raided? I didn't even think of the voices in the woods. After all, I could barely hear them. Canines and helicopters circled my house for hours. I knew I wasn't in any danger at that point, but I was pretty shaken for those few seconds of confusion. I don't know if these people ever got caught. Probably not, because I heard the helicopters for a long time, and I didn't hear anything on the news. The police wouldn't say anything about who they were looking for, or for what reason. I was hiking in the mountains of North Carolina one year, and instead of going around the bottom of a waterfall and back up, I thought I could just go across the top. It looked like other people traveled the path quiet often, and it would save me a lot of time and energy. I start across and slip. I start to slide down and grab some sort of branch thing hanging down. The limb was the only thing stopping me from falling down about 80 feet to rocks. So, reality starts to set in as the limb starts kind of giving way. At this point, the only way to get to safety is to just try and make it back to solid ground. I didn't know when I would see another person, and cell service was out of the question. I made my peace with the world and just went for it. Luckily, I made it back to solid ground. It still makes my palms sweaty to know it could have went the other way just as fast. That was the only time I thought I was going to die. A family friend of ours goes out of town every few years with their whole family, leaving behind their golden retriever, who is big but basically a puppy. So they ask me to house/dog sit every time. The last 2 times freaked me out. I was 19 female then, and it was the middle of the winter. I was up pretty late, like wee hours in the morning, and the dog starts barking. At first I think he wants to go out, so I let him. After he's done, I realized there are footprints in the snow on around the deck. They have a deck that wraps around the whole back of the house, which also has giant, almost floor-to-ceiling windows along the back side of the house too. I noticed the footprints start from the gate to the side garage door, up the deck to the slider door, all around the deck, stopping by the windows. I assumed to try to look in, and to a door that connects to the master bedroom I was staying in. Never saw anyone or told anyone until well after. The next year, I was a bit wary and still decided to do it. Again, in the middle of the night, the dog is going wild, and I heard noises outside. I looked toward the front door and thought I saw a shadowy figure, and I know the dog doesn't need to go out. He had gone out 10 minutes before. I was still unsure there wasn't anything actually wrong, just thinking it was all in my head, just scared because I'm alone and it's dark. So I text my boyfriend, who's in the next town over, what's going on. He catches on that I'm scared and decides to come over to check in on me. What's normally a 30-minute drive he does in 15, apparently doing over 100 on the highway, managing not to get pulled over. He knocks on the door, announcing that it's him, so I let him in. What he didn't tell me until months later was that he saw a man fleeing from the house when he pulled up. I was frightened during the thing, but I still wish he would have told me then, so I could have called the cops or something. When I ran out into an open field during a thunderstorm in Kansas because I thought it would feel badass to revel in the pure physical energy around me. After trekking about half a mile out and witnessing some of the most dramatic lightning I've ever seen, I noped out of there. Or that time I thought I was racing a random stranger home, and then they pulled off to the side of the road and started tailgating me in the same way. I realized I had just been tailgating them. About 200 yards from my driveway, I turned onto a gravel road I knew well and drove as fast as I could with my grandparents and headlights turned off, and then pulled into a friend's driveway. Or the time I passed someone while going 70 miles an hour in a 35 and came inches from running head-on into a dump truck. Every time I smoked weed and drank a lot, I'm allergic to weed, have asthma, and doing both causes me to go into respiratory duress without fail. Pretty much any time I'm not in my right mind and am standing close to an edge of anything high up, not because of a fear of heights, but because it always feels like there's a 50-50 chance I'll just impulsively jump off. Every time I go into anaphylactic shock, because I'm retarded, have a ton of life-threatening allergies, and don't carry any EpiPen.